Hi everybody, welcome to the ArcGIS and local government webinar. As we're pretty much nearly on 11, we're just going to go ahead and start. So as you know, this webinar is part of this year's New Zealand User Conference. So we'll be having you for the next hour and a half to take you through some technical updates and also hear from some customers in the local government space and see how they're using this technology at the moment. So we are your Eagle team today. On the line, we have a huge team that has joined us. So we have myself, I'm Lauren McCartney, I'm a technical solution product lead. We also have Julian Pilwar, Ed Cook and Omed Kazoyan from the technical solutions team. We're also joined by Greg Price, Nick Duke and Kenna Kelly, who will be familiar faces to you all as our account managers for the LG space. And also from our support team, we have Dean Petrusvik. So we will be your team today and we will be taking you through these updates and be available for questions at the end. So what's on the agenda today? So we have a variety of things that we're going to go through with you. First of all, we're starting with a technology update, and this will be focusing on some updates around local maps, looking at some engagement apps, and also hearing from Queenstown Lakes District Council on the use of ArcGIS Hub. We'll also be hearing about the Living Atlas and imagery, and then also ArcGIS Urban, hearing from some of the team, but also hearing from Palmerston North City Council on their application of ArcGIS Urban. After this, we'll be moving to more of a customer showcase and hearing about some user stories. So this will be from Wellington City Council, Tauranga City Council, Auckland Council, and then we'll be having a focus on the civil defence and emergency management space, hearing from councils within and agencies within the West Coast, Auckland and Canterbury. And after this, we'll have a bit of a Q&A. So as you can see, we have a lot to get through, so we're going to crack into things. Now, as with all of our webinars, you will see that we have an option to ask questions. So hopefully in the right-hand side of your panel, you'll have an option to put in any questions. These will come through to the team and we'll look to have those answered in the Q&A session at the end. Moving first to some technical updates and overviews, and this is starting with local maps. So how is local maps being used within New Zealand? And I guess this is more of just an update for folks out there. So local maps, if you have not been exposed to it before, is a locally developed application and it is designed to take your WebGIS further. And it does this by providing, I guess, a geographic window into your enterprise systems. Now, Local Maps was first released in 2016 and it was designed and still is predominantly designed for local government organisations. As you can see, with 75% of the user base still purely LG. Now, since its inception, Local Maps has grown significantly and is now used across central government, agriculture, ports, airports and utilities companies. So the diversity of the use that is being widely applied is helping to grow the capabilities even further. But focusing on local government, Local Maps supports a variety of workflows. Some key ones that I want to point out here around, first of all, integration capabilities. So the first one is looking at database integration. So that is the ability to surface both spatial and non-spatial information into one view. Then looking at application integration, and this is quite a key one for local government, whereby you can go from one system seamlessly into another system. As we know, within local government, there's a variety of systems that are being used daily. The gallery provides a centralized content discovery portal that essentially can be considered, I guess, a skin over top of your portal or ArcGIS Online, and that allows you to surface only the maps and the apps and the other information you want to make accessible to different groups or users. And with advanced reporting that is based in the web, we've found that Local Maps has become integral to key compliance and reporting-based workflows. And this can all be done through that same spatial lens that you're accessing all of this other information from. So where are we at currently with Local Maps? Now, most folks out there will have moved to the current version, which is 2.3.1. Now, the main focus for this release was quality enhancements alongside some new features such as support for arcade and feature queries, looking at a new automatic login experience, and then a large focus was on improving the report building experience with a lot more flexibility in the table design and a lot of usability improvements as well. And as a result of that, we have seen many organisations now adopt these sort of reports for LIMS, for PIMS, and for other property reporting workflows. Now, moving on to where Local Maps is heading, the roadmap. So the roadmap for Local Maps in the next 12 months is pretty exciting. Well, I, for one, am super excited. Now, in the short term, our focus is a revamp of the galleries. Now, this is something that I think everyone out there who uses Local Maps will say has stayed the same since day dot. And I'll touch on how you can have your say around these new designs soon. But essentially, these designs will leverage the Esri design system. So you can rely on greater consistency between Local Maps and a lot of the other applications within the ArcGIS system that use that calcite design. We'll also be looking to hold some regional feedback workshops so you can have your say. Now, in the near term, we have an exciting, probably a timely and understandably a very big task, which is the re-architecture of Local Maps to leverage the latest technology. So this includes the movement to JavaScript 4.x API and also rebuilding the Local Maps viewer to use Experience Builder. So essentially, we want you to have the latest technology underpinning this solution. Now, in the long term, the focus is for a software as a service version of Local Maps, as well as a containerized version for on-premise users. Local Maps will also be more modular, so that will give you a lot greater flexibility to use what actually makes sense to your organization. Now, you would have seen in the road ahead during the plenary that we do want to hear from you, and this is a huge part of Local Maps, making sure that you, the users, have a voice and can feed back to the product team. So part of this is what I mentioned before. We'll be looking to hold some regional Local Maps workshops where you can provide feedback and work through your ideas directly with the product team. And these might be new ideas, or they might be ones that you've already submitted onto the community page. And I do just want to mention the latest announcement on the community page, and this is related to that gallery feedback that I talked about. So tell us what's working with the current design, what isn't, and what you want to see. And you'll see here that I popped up a QR code to our Survey 123 feedback form. So you can have a look there, or you can just jump onto the page and let us know. Now, this is going to directly feed into our design work. So if you want to chip in and feed the direction of Local Maps, get in there. Now is a great time to do that. So that was just a bit of a quick update on Local Maps and where we're heading. Now we're going to be moving to a focused engagement and collaboration tool within the ArcGIS system, and this is ArcGIS Hub. Now, there will likely be people attending today that have dabbled in or maybe already implemented an ArcGIS Hub site for the organisation. But for those who are new to ArcGIS Hub, it is essentially a collaboration and engagement platform that is bolted onto ArcGIS Online. And it enables councils or any organisation to communicate more effectively and communicate with members of their communities. Now, ArcGIS Hub has 4 main capabilities that I want to run through, and these are designed for more effective communication and engagement with your community. So firstly, it allows you to convey information on topics that are relevant to your community, and it allows you to share data and content. And these capabilities are available in the version that's actually built into ArcGIS Online right now, which is ArcGIS Hub Basic. Then we're looking at ArcGIS Hub Premium, which builds on these capabilities and gives you the option to enter into a 2-way engagement with your community. So that's kind of that trigger into the premium space, which is that 2-way engagement. So this allows community members to create accounts, which they can use to submit data, their own data. They can create maps and apps. And also Premium comes with greater collaboration tools. So you essentially are getting a bit closer to your community in that sense by giving them kind of the ability to provide information back to you as well. So translating that into actually functionality, ArcGIS Hub comes with the option to build sites. So this is kind of that front-end experience where they can access information. This also has built-in catalog and searching tools to find and explore data, apps, and other content. And this can then be shared publicly as well. They can also interact with the data there, or they can download it for further analysis. So those are built into ArcGIS Hub Basic. Premium also is building on that again and comes with initiatives, which are, I guess, an organizational structure that helps your organization accomplish its goals and tasks. So whether you're looking at increasing awareness about a cause, or whether you want feedback on a project that's going on within the council, or maybe you want to get more people involved in a management plan around pests. These tools can be used for that. And Premium, you can also do things like messaging members and setting up teams. So again, it's that closer connection to members of your community. Now, to see how these capabilities actually translate into a functional ArcGIS Hub site, we're going to hear from a council who has created a really impressive spatial data hub. And this is using that version that's baked into ArcGIS Online right now, that basic version, and that's Queenstown Lakes District Council. So Tim White, who is GIS team leader at QLDC, alongside Olivia Martin, GIS analyst there, they really know ArcGIS Hub in and out, and they're going to talk to us today about their experience implementing this technology and some of the key benefits that they have seen. So I'm going to hand it across to them.
Hi there, I'm Tim White and I lead the GIS team at the Queenstown Lakes District Council. This year in June, we launched our Spatial Data Hub, which is an ArcGIS Hub site that serves as the public's primary view of our GIS content. I'll talk briefly about our motivations for developing the site and some of the factors that influenced our decision to go with an ArcGIS Hub. Before I hand over to Olivia Martin, our GIS analyst, who'll speak about the design and some of the features and decisions that we made along the way. To start with some context though, prior to launching the hub, our public-facing content consisted primarily of a minimal gallery application embedded on a page on the QLDC website, and also linked to from that page was a separate open data site. The page is gone now, but we did grab a screenshot before we launched the hub, and as you can see, minimal is probably the right word for it, with the gallery application embedded at the bottom in an iframe there. There were a number of things not great about the page, but probably top of that list was that despite the website being responsive as well as the application being responsive, the combination of the two made for a user experience on mobile devices that was a bit messy, left quite a bit to be desired. Additionally, any changes to the structure of the site involved our comms team going to an external developer, and so there were kind of 3 steps in the chain. So we asked our comms team if they'd be comfortable working with us directly to develop our own site. They said yes, and so here we are. And ArcGIS Hub was really always the obvious choice for us for a few main reasons. Firstly, that it's a flexible platform, which was a priority given the pace of change. It's also owned by the GIS team. It's an application that lives in ArcGIS Online, so we can have that direct control, but we don't need to worry about hosting or server maintenance. No coding is required for an ArcGIS Hub, but there is the ability to customize HTML and CSS, particularly in the header, which we made use of, and Olivia will speak to that shortly. And finally, perhaps most importantly, it was and is free with our ArcGIS Online subscription. So with that, I'll hand over to Olivia.
Thanks, Tim. Hi everyone, I'm Olivia and I'm going to walk you through the design, build, and overall process we took to create the QLDC Spatial Data Hub. From the beginning, we always knew that our site would have a main hub site, a open data site, a new experience builder app to replace our map gallery, and a new app for extracting data in CAD format. We also knew that our goals were to align with the QLDC brand, provide an improved user experience, and create new content to help users with common tasks. The great thing about Hub and Experience Builder is that there are so many different ways to customize them both, but that can also make it a bit overwhelming if you don't really know where to start. Being a more technical person myself, I found the design part to be, for lack of a better term, a bit of a black hole of uncertainty. So we turned to the Esri map and app galleries for inspiration. We ended up pulling ideas from a few different places and then finding ways to make them our own based on what we wanted to achieve. One thing that really helped us was working with our comms team on the design of the site. Thanks to the drag and drop nature of the hub, I was able to just get in and start building. So I came up with an initial design, which we then presented to the comms team, and from there they were able to come up with a final mock-up of what the site would look like, including some custom icons that matched the ones on the QLDC webpage. It wasn't always smooth sailing though. We went back and forth about 1,000,000 times over what we were going to call the site. Some of them okay, some of them not quite as good, like Mappy McMapface, but we ended up settling with the Spatial Data Hub. There was also an unfortunate incident where I got so consumed with the design of the site that I showed up to a meeting wearing an outfit that exactly matched the initial design. Once we realized that I had a bit of a problem and got past that awkwardness, we ended up with this. Welcome to the QLDC Spatial Data Hub, As Tim mentioned, part of the design was creating this custom header that you see up here that matches the one on the QLDC webpage. So to do this, I just used the Chrome developer tools to inspect the QLDC website and copied any sections of relevant code from there into the custom HTML, CSS section of the hub. It also features a navigation menu bar that I created from scratch based on the framework of the header that has a couple of direct links to some of our new applications, as well as drop-downs that feature anchor links that go straight to specific sections of the pages. This took a little bit of time because it also involved me remembering how to code in HTML and CSS, and to be honest, it's been about 10 years, so that was fun. But thanks to my very advanced skills of Google searching, I was able to figure it out. For the development of the main page, we thought about what we most wanted to promote and what order we thought users would want to navigate in. So we started by putting the new Map Navigator, which is our new multi-purpose map viewer that allows users to access all the maps in a single application instead of our single-use gallery. We put this first because we wanted users to try it out first before immediately going back to what they were used to. We didn't want to inconvenience them too much, though, because there are tools that are missing from the Map Navigator right now, just because they don't exist in Experience Builder yet. So right after it, we put the Map Gallery, which just links to our existing Web App Builder apps, but in a fancier looking gallery. Scrolling down a little bit farther, we have our featured content section. The purpose of this is that it will change over time to feature different maps, tools, and apps as we develop new ones that we want to promote. Right now it has our new data download app, which I'll go into more detail on a little bit later. We also have links on here to our other new pages, like our Open Data page, which has the standard links to Open Data, as well as a new available LiDAR areas map that I created in Experience Builder, which design-wise is just a much nicer product than what we had before. The other thing we developed was a web services page that has an FAQ that explains how to use our direct REST services from the Open Data pages. The final thing we added is the disclaimer page, which obviously is the most exciting part, but I won't go into a lot of detail on that. Our final goal for the initial build of the site was to have new content ready to go for users. So the first step of this was the data download tool, which was developed as an easy way for users to clip and extract data in CAD format, and also to reduce some of our more common BAU tasks. The other step of this was to create our new Map Navigator, which, as I mentioned, is a single-purpose application so that users can find all of the maps they want in a single place. So if they go to, for example, the property map, each of these maps will have different widgets depending on what its purpose is. We also have map action set up so that if they switch maps, it will zoom straight into the same location that they were in before. Some of our maps are embedded Web App Builder apps. These are the ones that needed functionality that doesn't exist in Experience Builder yet. So one example of this is the historic imagery map, which has a slider widget to show different years of imagery at the same time. The other thing we were able to do with this was, as Tim mentioned, create different layouts for the different mobile viewing options. So this is a bit of a representation of what the tablet version looks like, and then this one here is our mobile version. They look a little bit better on the actual devices, but this at least gives you an idea of what we were able to do. So that brings me to our longer term goals and planned improvements. So for the Map Navigator, we're planning on adding new maps as they get developed. For example, we just added a new Parks and Open Spaces map a couple weeks ago. We are also going to keep adding new tools and functionality as it gets released for Experience Builder, especially printing, custom view processing tools, data editing, and drawing tools. And then eventually we'll decommission the old map gallery and just have everything available through the Map Navigator. For the data download tool, we're planning on adding new data periodically. Next up will be the district plan data and potentially some LiDAR point cloud data for our new LiDAR. For the hub site, we're planning on adding some emergency management related alerts through indicator type widgets, metrics on new data capture, for example, a dashboard showing asset inspections and maintenance to provide a better view into what council and its contractors are doing. We'd also like to add a Survey 123 form for users to submit back with a webhook to notify us of any new submissions. And then we'd also like to display some community content by partnering with schools and other organizations. So, big question then, how long did all of this take us? I think it was around 4 months from start to finish. We got a little bit lucky in this sense because I had recently started in the team and was already working on a couple of projects that happened to fit with the Spatial Data Hub. It also included times when I would consistently work on it for a bit and then, a couple of weeks where I wouldn't do anything on it while I waited for feedback. I think if we had been a little bit less ambitious and tried to do less at once, we definitely could have done it in less time, but what's life without a little bit of overly ambitious app creation, right? The time we spent on it was extremely valuable in the end. We've received some really good feedback from external users, and we've done a lot of learning on the hub and especially Experience Builder. We've also set ourselves up with a really good way to provide geospatial content to the public. So that's it for me. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed hearing about the adventure that was the development of the QLDC Spatial Data Hub. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you so much to Tim and Olivia for that. And I really encourage folks out there to take a look at QLDC's Spatial Data Hub. They have really created a really slick destination for the community to go to for the council's spatial information. And as you heard, it is probably just going to grow. I also personally love that your outfit matched the site, Olivia. That's what we call dedication. And they're not the only ones out there. Obviously, it's great to see a number of you also using ArcGIS Hub in both basic and premium capacity. So for other councils like New Plymouth District Council and some other great sites at the top of the south from Nelson City Council and Tasman District Council. But also outside of LG, there are some great diverse applications of this tool. Moving now to an update on the ever-growing Living Atlas content and a breakdown of some of the imagery offerings that are available. For this, we have Julian and Omid on board, so I'm actually going to hand it across to them now. So first up, we're going to hear from Julian.
Thank you very much, Lauren. So today, I'd just like to, hopefully you're able to join us for the New Zealand Esri User Conference plenary last week. Was that last week or was that the week? Oh, time's flying by, but just like to reiterate some of the latest additions to the ArcGIS Living Atlas, which may help with your work in local government. And I'm also going to share with you a bit about our premium imagery partnerships. Sweet. So to kick us off, base data in New Zealand. Many of you have been using LINZ's base data via the ArcGIS Living Atlas. And these layers include, say, building outlines, addresses, parcels, and many more. And these layers are updated on a weekly basis. And we've also seen the addition of some new layers recently, that being the New Zealand facilities layers, bringing together the location of schools and hospitals, the FENS localities, and also a updated coastline and islands dataset. Now, one administrative change which LINZ are making is that they're going to be republishing their data under the organisation Land Information New Zealand rather than Base Data New Zealand. And so these new items under Land Information New Zealand are now in the Living Atlas, and I strongly recommend you switch out the layers before they're deprecated at the end of the year, so that you don't have any time where those layers are no longer working in maps. Base maps. So just like LINZ's base data, many of you use our Eagle base maps, and we've recently put some much needed love into our raster base maps. So this includes updates to the labels and the data sets for roads and buildings, which were significantly out of date. However, it is worth noting that these are our last planned updates for the New Zealand community and raster canvas base maps, as we're switching our focus solely to vector-based maps. So again, I strongly encourage you to search for the New Zealand vector-based maps in ArcGIS Online and Enterprise, and start using those for your day-to-day work and also for your public-facing mapping platforms. Next slide, please, Lauren. We've also been putting a lot of mahi into our New Zealand imagery base map. So this includes a tiling scheme change, now allowing you to zoom deeper than you were before to 1:70 scale. And so the old items are now marked with the tag classic, with the new items having taken on the former name. So the latest imagery base map is now called NZ Imagery. And so that is the final recommendation of switching I'll ask for you today, but I recommend you take advantage of the additions we've made there. And if that wasn't enough of an incentive, we've also released a hybrid vector-based map style, which is designed to provide context to the New Zealand imagery base map with labels and roads and so on. And so this can be found in the Living Atlas today. And don't forget, seeing as it's a vector-based map, you can also change the style to meet your needs as well. And as you can see here, one final change we made, I believe last month, was the addition of bathymetry to our New Zealand imagery base map. So goodbye white space. And again, it's part of that new imagery base map that we have published. Cool, so keeping with the theme of imagery, our new imagery base map, which you all contribute to, it meets many of your needs, bringing together the best publicly available imagery with resolutions ranging from, say, 7.5 centimeters in urban areas to 10 meters in rural areas. However, we recognize that this imagery can sort of quickly become out of date, and it can be a costly process to capture more regularly. So we've partnered with several imagery providers over the last 12 months to make this data a bit more accessible to you. So the first provider being Nearmap, who cover 14 of New Zealand's most populated urban and regional metro areas, and this can be once or twice annually at 6 centimeter resolution or better. And this is fixed wing imagery. So this makes their imagery ideal for tasks where having access to high resolution and frequent captures are important. So that could be, say, urban planning or large infrastructure projects. And next up is Planet, and I also tag in Maxar here, who are formerly known as Digital Globe. And they are satellite-based providers, and they offer products such as daily imagery or near daily imagery at 3 meter resolution, all the way to on-demand tasked imagery at 30 centimeters to 15 centimeters or better. And both providers offer RGB and also multispectral imagery for all of New Zealand and the world. And whilst there are endless use cases for, I suppose, high cadence imagery, we've largely been seeing these providers, I suppose these products used for environmental monitoring, change detection, and emergency responses. So that's a very, very quick taster of our premium imagery offerings. If your organization would find value in higher resolution or higher cadence imagery, please don't hesitate to get in touch with your account manager. But without further ado, I've probably passed my allotted time already, so I'll pass over to Omid to talk about LiDAR and 3D solutions. Thank you. Over to you, Omid.
Thank you very much, Julian. That was a very great talk. So hopefully you have already watched Land Information New Zealand presentation on LiDAR in the plenary. I would like to add to that by having a short talk about how you can use LiDAR data in ArcGIS, in Esri ArcGIS system. So as you may know, as part of LIN's National Elevation Program, LiDAR is being captured for much of New Zealand, allowing us to create 3D products and services. Here at Eagle Technology, we have made elevation layers from the LIN's DEM. This publicly available elevation layer is for use in applications such as ArcGIS Pro, the ArcGIS Online Scene Viewer, and some of Geo-enabled systems like ArcGIS Urban. So that's why we have developed the 3D base map solution package, which is a series of ArcGIS Pro workflows that can be used by mapping technicians to create and maintain a 3D base map for their organization, leveraging existing data such as building footprints, LiDAR, and on-the-ground utility features. So output of these workflows is a collection of 3D layers, which can be used together to serve as a 3D base map in ArcGIS Pro or online apps such as ArcGIS Urban. So there are many use cases. So next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So there are many use cases for 3D base map. Urban infrastructure network, for example, could be visualized in 3D in an easily understandable view. For example, for tree water network, upstream, downstream, and their spatial relationship within of the network with the above ground facilities could be clearly visualized, and it would be easier for staff to monitor and maintain the network and it would be easier for citizens to view and give feedbacks. Also, 3D base maps is beneficial for environmental risk management. For example, we can model different scenarios for different levels of flood or sea level rise to identify flood-prone areas. Also, 3D base maps could be imported in relevant Esri ArcGIS products for urban design, like ArcGIS City Engine, and then urban designers can obviously visualize their design ideas through creating and defining and applying rule packages. So point clouds could be used and derived GIS features, but underlying DM and DSM can be equally as useful for understanding and modeling land processes in domains such as agriculture and forestry, for example, for calculating effluent runoff. So here we have an example of using 3D modeling use case in urban planning in New Zealand. So the 3D modeling visualizes buildings with different space use types and densities. Also, we can visualize zoning codes and building regulations in the 3D model, as you can see in the photo picture on the left-hand side. Also, a detailed analysis of shadows of line of sight for existing and proposed developments are only a few examples of capabilities of 3D modeling in urban planning. So ArcGIS Urban is based on 3D base maps and contributes to decision making through 3D modeling of planning scenarios. ArcGIS Urban capabilities and use cases will be further discussed in the next presentation. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm just going to hand over to Julian.
Thank you for that, Omid. So as you showed, there's a whole variety of things that you can do with the rich elevation data that we're getting from the Provincial Growth Fund and from Land Information New Zealand. And so as was mentioned in the presentation at plenary by LINZ, what they really want you to do is make use of that elevation data and I suppose use it to make decisions that based on data that we haven't had access to in the past. So make sure that if there are workflows where having up-to-date elevation data is important, make sure you make use of that. A few other calls to action would be to, as I said, make those switches to the latest imagery base map and Eagle Vector base maps. If you're getting imagery captured, or if you have any ideas on ready-to-use content that you'd find helpful that we at Eagle can help you, please get in contact with us at the Living Atlas at eagle.co.nz. And again, if you are interested in higher cadence or higher resolution imagery, please get in touch with your account manager. But that's all from us. Thank you, Lauren, and back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julian and Omid, for that. Moving now to another tech update, and this time it's actually a great flow on from what we've just heard, and we're moving to ArcGIS Urban. So ArcGIS Urban is, as Omid mentioned, one of Esri's geo-enabled systems where GIS is used to do things like orchestrating urban planning, streamlining plan creation, analysing the impacts of plans, and then being able to visualise these projects and push them out to the public for engagement on the developments that are happening. So to tell us more about ArcGIS Urban, we're actually going to bring back Omid, who will be giving us an overview of ArcGIS Urban, and following him will be Tewini Roberts, who is a GIS analyst at Palmerston North City Council, who will be talking about their use case of ArcGIS Urban in digital twin and smart city planning. So first of all, I'm going to hand it over to Omid.
Hello everyone, I'm an GIS research intern at Eagle Technology working on ArcGIS Urban application, and today I'm going to give you a talk about an overview of ArcGIS Urban and its application in smart city planning. This is an ongoing project at Eagle Technology in collaboration with Palmerston North City Council. Esri ArcGIS Urban is the next generation of geo-enabled planning tool that supports 3D visualization, analysis, sharing, and collaboration. Good communication and storytelling is almost absent in urban planning. ArcGIS Urban offers a good ability to visualize and model our cities and planning codes and contribute to a more efficient decision-making, engagement, and outcome. So ArcGIS Urban is based on 3D base map, and as you can see, we have a model for Palmerston North City of 3D base map here. We can either visualize it schematically, or we can add imagery. We can turn on or off the buildings that we're going to develop, or we can take a screenshot of our screen. So we have projects which are short-term planning activities. They are maybe in different status. We do have plans that are longer-term planning activities, and we have indicators. Indicators are web scene layers that add context to our plans and projects. For example, this one is a bus accessibility. And so we have plans. We have an infill residential development plan for Roxburgh area. As you can see in the planning card, you can see name of plan, address, start and end date, and you can see the different scenarios proposed for this plan. So we're gonna open the plan to see more details. Okay, so at the top right, you can see two scenarios proposed for the plan. We can either add a new scenario, or we can edit the current proposed scenarios through those 4 items at the top right. In the zoning tab, we can see the zones proposed for the plan and the share of each. We can select each zoning block and either assign a new zoning type to the block, or we can configure the current zoning proposed. So you can see the details of, for example, residential zone here, like maximum coverage, tires and setbacks that are proposed for this zone, and allowed space use types and the share of each. In the development tab, we can do some edits at parcel scale. So for example, we have a parcel selected here. You can see the building type for this parcel as personal services. We can open up this building type to see the details of this building type. You can see different space use types proposed for this building type. We can change the geometry of the building or the alignments based on the streets or interior. We can either demolish this building. We can either assign a new building type. We can update building type, or basically get rid of any building for this parcel. You can see the details of building regulations, and also we can visualize zoning envelope, which is the maximum buildable area for this parcel according to zoning regulations. So in the dashboard, we do have some capacity metrics like population, number of jobs, energy use, greenhouse gas emissions, and so on. And this is especially useful for comparing proposed scenarios. So each scenario have different values for different capacity metrics. So as you can see, we shift between the scenarios, and you can see how the values for these capacity metrics are changing. Also, this plan could be shared with the public to get their feedback. You can see people can add their location-based comments on different parts of the plan and providing some feedback. We can also do some analysis. So for example, we can do some measurements, or we can analyze line of sight. So for example, residents in this medium density apartment here may want to have view to a nearby park and river. So you can see their views is partly blocked by some proposed buildings. So we might need to revise some of the buildings, or we can do some shadow analysis. So here areas in dark color are areas that are more than 2 hours in shadow between 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Or we can alternatively visualize shadows in a discrete manner. You can see the direction intensity of shadow for each hour. Yeah, so that was the presentation of one of the plans proposed. I just want to say that we have projects that we can define projects, and each project may be in different development status, and each project may have different scenarios proposed for it.
Thank you, Ahmed, for sharing some of Urban's features and functionality, and kia ora to my fellow attendees. My name is Tioni, and I lead our all things geospatial within the Strategic Planning Unit at the Palmy Council. As Ahmed has mentioned, we have coupled with Eagle in developing our use of ArcGIS Urban. For my part, I'd like to cover off how the platform can enable council-client relationship in building a well-functioning urban environment. The challenge of communicating written objectives, policies and rules into quality physical outcomes for the built environment has been a drawback of planning documents, especially when these very documents can support developers to realize greater development opportunity. The intended use of these documents, together with the guidance of the National Policy Statement for Urban Development, is to assist the city to sustainably meet projected development demands, in particular housing. This is, in most part, why we have selected ArcGIS Urban as a tool and a platform of choice. Urban blends the physical with the digital, something that I'm sure we'll see more of as city digital twins become more prevalent. Palmy Council are continually trying to build collaborative relationships with developers to enable development outcomes that can work better for both parties, particularly when the consenting pathway to achieve a better result is viewed as a difficult, ambiguous, time-consuming and costly process for developers. This is said to be true for discretionary and restricted discretionary consenting activities for intensive residential multi-unit developments where the nuance and context of a proposed site can allow more flexibility with design than might otherwise be achieved under a more permissive status quo rule set. By working with the development community in this way, Council can give more certainty to the built outcomes we are seeking. Part of the difficulty is not having a visual communication tool of the site plans for both parties to walk through. The wooden blocks on top of a scale map is one method that is used for massing bulk and location, but has obvious limitations when constructing development scenarios for the site. A tool like Urban can help Council communicate graphically the physical forms represented by the statutory and strategic objectives we are seeking for the city. Through such a tool, we're able to highlight to developers a range of development scenarios and opportunities available on a site through applying city planning rules to a particular context. ArcGIS Urban provides us a platform to now explore codifying objectives, policies and rules of our district plan so that high-level bulk and location scenarios can be visually generated to show and inform developers how the development opportunity begin to shape up spatial and physical form. These scenarios focus on codified residential zone building and space types so we can visually communicate and compare what the density uplift opportunity could be for potential redevelopment areas of the city. It can also be used to judge how we meet future housing demand while being conscious of the effects on existing and surrounding built environments. Through applying different building typologies, the tool can give initial indication to both council and developers of the plausible building envelope and primary form to understand how best to respond to the existing surrounding context, and will assist identifying consenting pathways required so higher value discussions can be had on how to move forward and navigate the chosen pathway with greater certainty and confidence.
Awesome. Thank you so much to Omid and Tiwini for that and for showing us that diverse application of ArcGIS Urban. Moving now from the technical update side of things to a focus on how councils around the country are applying ArcGIS technology to solve a variety of different business problems. Now, you will have seen in plenary last week the work that Christchurch City Council have been doing, and we wanted to be able to showcase some other innovative user stories from our local government customers. So first up, we have Wellington City Council. Today, the team at Wellington City Council will be focusing on 3 key areas and some updates. First off, we have Ollie Blake, who is a GIS analyst at the council, who will be giving us an update on the spatial plan, building on what we heard from Orla last year. After that, we'll have Jonathan, or Jono Moore, who's an information analyst and is going to be telling us about building a walking network for the city. And then senior GIS analyst Orla Hammond will be presenting an update on the housing and business development capacity. So first up, Ollie. Here we're going to hear about how geospatial data, analysis and applications have provided key input to the development of their spatial plan. And this has helped to guide and communicate the vision for the future of Wellington. So I'm just going to hand it over to Ollie.
Tēnā koutou. My name is Ollie Blake, and I'm a GIS analyst in the place planning team at Wellington City Council. Here I will be quickly running through some examples of how our team used geospatial technology within our recently released spatial plan. The spatial plan is a non-statutory document that sets the strategic direction on how Wellington grows over the next 20 to 30 years. This is important as it provides a long-term approach to guide city planning. Our spatial plan will be used alongside our district plan to shape how Wellington looks and feels in the future. The plan is centred around these 6 goals: compact, inclusive and connected, greener, resilient, partnership with mana whenua, and vibrant and prosperous. The spatial plan is primarily a planning document, but our use of geospatial technologies has served as an important tool to guide decisions from our team and communicate our messages to the community. Presenting on the entire spatial plan in 5 minutes is a challenge, so in this short talk I'll be focusing on a couple of key examples of how GIS has helped to shape this document. One major piece of analysis we carried out for this project was the creation of our housing typologies. These are areas that enable the development of different housing densities, ranging from type 1, which represents low density, to type 5, which represents up to 8 stories. Enabling this range of housing development across Wellington allows us to meet a projected growth in population of 50 to 80,000 people over 30 years. These typologies will be feeding into our residential zones and rules in our upcoming draft district plan. Our typologies have been based on several factors. The original data was based on a heat map created from accessibility to community amenities. These amenities included access to public transport, proximity to the city centre and centres, access to good quality open space, availability of the cycling network, the location of supermarkets, the location of schools, and the availability of community facilities such as libraries and community centres. The focus was given to the suburban centres, which stems from our growth scenario community engagement in 2019. Following this, other variables need to be factored into this layer. One major influence here was the National Policy Statement on Urban Development 2020, which directs authorities to enable building heights of at least 6 stories within a walkable catchment of the city centre, metropolitan centres, and rapid transit stops such as railway stations. The results of this, for us, was a process of updating our citywide walking network, which will be presented on by my co-worker Jono. We used the updated network dataset to generate our walkable catchments and tune the housing density types to match our requirements in the NPSUD. On this map here, you can see the walkable areas represented as a black line. Combining our spatial plan content and maps and effectively communicating what it means to the community was another area where GIS provided key solutions. To display our spatial data alongside our written content in a clear way, we used map journal story maps, Here on the left-hand side of the screen, we can scroll through our written content and skip to different sections of the document if needed. To the right, we have embedded either graphics or an interactive map displaying the relevant spatial data. To link the content and the map data, hyperlinks have been added to the text, which perform specific actions on the associated map. We used Esri Experience Builder as a shell for our map journals. To try and keep navigation simple, we used the menu widget within a header and connected each section of the spatial plan to a separate page in Experience Builder. This resulted in the tabs that can be seen at the top of the page. Lastly, we added the Map Builder tab for users who only wanted to view our spatial data without the text. This features a simple map holding every layer that we have throughout the spatial plan document. Users can also print their own maps from the Map Builder with their preferred layers. These two examples represent only a small snapshot of the overall spatial plan. There are plenty of other examples and cases through the document where GIS data analysis and applications have been used to create a more comprehensive and engaging document. If you're interested, you can view our officer recommended version at planningforgrowth.wellington.govt.nz or contact myself, Orla Hammond, or John O'Moore at planningforgrowth@wcc.govt.nz. Kia ora, and thank you.
Awesome, thanks Ollie, and it's great to see how ArcGIS was an important tool to help communicate and guide decision making around that spatial plan. Now next up we have John O'Moore, who's going to be talking to us about how Wellington City Council have used Model Builder and ArcGIS Pro to build an automated update process for their walking network dataset. And this is a key dataset for conducting network analysis of pedestrian movements.
Kia ora koutou, my name is Jonathan Moore from the Wellington City Council Place Planning team, and today I'm going to give you a quick overview of our walking network update process. So first off, walking network dataset, what is it? It's a dataset that's used within network analysis to calculate different versions of either a route analysis or a catchment area analysis. And it consists of pathways, features that each have a different cost associated to it, to allow the network to calculate what is the best route and what is the best way to move through those features to calculate out the catchment result or the route result. As you can see in this photo here, the effect that has, if you're using that for something like a walking network analysis, is vastly different from just doing a simple buffer. Strategically, this kind of data and this kind of use case has a number of different applications. So whether it be across planning or transport, emergency management, evacuation planning, or even our actual asset management and provision of social services. So just to give you an idea of what process we went through in updating this and some of the challenges we came across, first thing we did was to look at data sourcing and doing a gap analysis. We wanted to make sure we were using asset data from Wellington City Council, the most up-to-date data that we possibly could. And to do that, we first identified all the different data sources that we needed, whether that be footpaths, controlled crossings, pedestrian crossings, or park and reserve tracks, to essentially form those features that the network would move along. Of course, one of the most immediate issues that come across with that is even if you have all of that data and it's had a gap analysis done and is accurate and up to date, you need to ensure that those features are actually touching one another. If they don't have those links, then the network won't be able to move through and produce the result that you want. So that's just one of a number of issues we encountered, but I wanted to just go over a brief overview of that and how we approach that. So we first, for sort of informal road crossings or links between sides of the road, as well as each data set with the other data sets that were involved in this process, we created a Python script that automatically generated those links. You can see there in red on the left, those are all the automated links that have been created just in this small sort of couple block area of the city. That Python script ended up generating over 9,000 of these network links, which we then reviewed to ensure that there was accuracy across all of those. But then we also did have situations we needed to add some links manually. And so on the right, you can see a park track that has its terminus at a park. A person would, if they were using that asset, walk across the park to get to the footpath, but the network link creation didn't automatically pick that up, so we had to add about 1,000 links manually as well. What that resulted in is a huge increase in the coverage and increase in the accuracy of our network. Blue is the old network for this particular part of the city around Johnsonville, and red is the new network, the added paths and routes, and you can see a significant improvement. But of course, doing that once to only have to maybe do it again several months or years later isn't really the best way to structure and organize this kind of process. So we created an update process in Model Builder that allows us to automate that and make the steps significantly easier for our teams. Once we had those features that the network moved along, we of course needed to apply some sort of calculation to how it generates the information output. So we did a literature review looking at walking speed, and here's just a sort of smorgasbord of different papers that we researched in doing this. And what we did is we looked at each paper and put it onto a sort of a spectrum on sort of low, medium, or fast based on its speed calculation to get an idea of how they were consistent or inconsistent with one another, but as well classified them if they were looking at particular demographic groups or population groups. But of course, that isn't the only thing. Actually, slope is a huge determinant of how people walk, how fast they walk. And so we need to apply slope and slope direction to that as well. So to do that, we had to actually come up with a model of how speed should vary with slope. And the frustrating thing is that through the research, it indicated that that doesn't vary consistently with different speed groups, or it doesn't vary consistently between going up or downhill. So how do we do that? We used Strava Metro data, which was sort of crowdsourced information that had over 7,000 kilometers of coverage, and also did our own targeted collection, 48 kilometers, and used an average method through that looked at using the literature review from earlier, applying it to the percentile group within our data, and then creating a model based on this Lorentz function to show how that to best model and fit that data. So we end up kind of having a melding of our local collected crowdsourced data and international research that said gave an indication of how people walk speed-wise. And these were the results, a graph showing high, moderate, and low speed as it varies with slope. So we had a number of great outcomes out of that, but I'm running out of time, so I'll just wrap up there and just say thank you very much.
Really appreciate hearing that from Jono and seeing just how much work goes into establishing a walking network dataset. Now finally, from Wellington City Council, we have Orla Hammond, who will be presenting a housing and business development capacity update, and how this time they've taken a more collaborative approach.
Tēnā koutou katoa. My name is Orla. I'm a GIS analyst on the place planning team here in Wellington City Council. Today I'm going to speak to you about the Housing and Business Development Capacity Assessment, which is also known as the HBA. A little bit of background to kick us off. The National Policy Statement on Urban Development Capacity was released in 2016. The goal of this policy was to ensure councils are providing sufficient development capacity to meet growth requirements over the short, medium and long term. In 2019, Wellington City Council, in coordination with other councils, produced the Housing and Business Development Capacity Assessment for the Wellington region. This document evaluated the development capacity that the current district plan enabled. The result was the city has a shortage of residential development capacity, and the council will need to respond by way of planning interventions to increase the feasible housing capacity. In 2020, National Government released the National Policy Statement on Urban Development, so this was to supersede the NPSUD that came out in 2016. So how did that impact the HBA? It said that every Tier 1, 2 and 3 local authority needed to amend its regional policy statement or district plan to give effect to some of the new provisions that the NPSUD was proposing. This meant that we had to update the housing assessment of the HBA by July this year, and by August of 2022, so next year, we needed to notify district plan changes that would implement our intensification policies. It also meant that we needed to complete a full review of the HBA in order to inform the 2024 long-term plans. The first part of estimating development capacity was done in ArcPro and CityEngine. First, property-specific rules were applied to each land parcel. These rules included the district plan zone and restrictions to development, for example, if it was a heritage area or a reserve area. We also calculated some statistics for each parcel, such as what area the land is in hectares and meters, the mean elevation, and the direction of the street-facing edge of the parcel. The calculations were done for each parcel both with and without existing building footprints. This allowed us to model for complete redevelopment of the parcel and infill. Next, we used City Engine to perform procedural modelling. A rule file was created to cycle through a series of tasks which applied additional district plan settings and developed a 3D model of what could be developed on a specific site. This included settings like the height limit for the district plan zone, site coverage, and usable floor space, which was particularly important in places like the central city, where some development can be allocated to air conditioning ducts and lift shafts. The procedural rule file was run across the comprehensive redevelopment and infill property data to create scenarios for both options. The Python modelling stage has 4 broad steps that apply the final district plan settings. Applying development contribution areas and rates, applying open space requirements, maximising the development and splitting the result into multiple development types, and applying minimum lot size rules. The output is generated for both comprehensive redevelopment and infill development. It calculates the yield for 3 types of developments: standalone housing, terraced housing, and apartments. The final stage is taking our theoretical model and applying real-world conditions to it. At a high level, the economic analysis is done by incorporating all the costs of a development, incorporating a realistic sale price, and then determining if the development is profitable. The types of costs included are the initial purchase price, professional fees, civil works fees, network provider fees, and the construction cost from building to painting. When necessary, these costs change based on the type of development being modelled and where in the city the development is. This analysis is performed across all of the scenarios on each site, and a final capacity number is based on the most profitable scenario. So what were the key learnings and next steps? The biggest one was that coordination between planners and GIS people is really essential. While all of the modelling was done using GIS, we really needed planners to help us answer some of the questions about the rules and really understand what they were trying to achieve with them. We also learned that a detailed process is also a complex process, but doesn't really have to be. The more complicated the process, the harder it is to troubleshoot issues. We also had some problems with software compatibility. Can definitely improve on with some of the alternative softwares out there, for example, ArcGIS Urban. We also learned that the HVA is never truly finished. There's constant monitoring and updates, and it's also a really valuable tool to test the district plan rules and let us know that they're doing what we want them to do, which is to provide sufficient housing for everyone in the city. So that's everything from me. Thank you very much for listening, and if you have any questions, please feel free to contact Planning for Growth. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Ola, and the team at Wellington City Council. Now we're going to be moving north to Tauranga City Council. Here we have 2 presentations lined up. Firstly, from Afaf Abbas, GIS analyst and developer from Tauranga City Council, who will be taking us through the council's customer community management dashboard. And then we'll hear from Tauranga's GIS platform manager, Tim Watson, who'll be talking to us about the spatial display of capital works programs and the impacts that this has had on the council's future works. So I'm going to hand it across to them.
Yeah, g'day, I'm Tim Watson from Tauranga City Council. I'm the GIS platform manager.
Hi, I'm Afaf Abbas. I'm a GIS analyst developer at Tauranga City Council. Hello.
And we're here to show you a couple of applications that were built in-house that we think are pretty nifty. Afaf, I'll let you show yours first.
Yes, thank you, Tim. And here we are here. As you can see, that's a CCM dashboard. And first of all, a CCM stands for Customer Communication Management. So the council call center receives calls from customers regarding incidents such as water pipe leaks, footpath damages, rubbish bin not being collected, and so on. These calls entered into a database system called Ozone and assigned to a referral. The referral is a person who is responsible for investigating and resolving the CCM. The dashboard was created to help the transportation team monitoring their daily received CCM, open CCM, and CCM that reaching the target dates within a certain number of days. In our case here, we have 2 days and 4 days. FME model has been built to integrate the CCM information from Ozone, the CCM information system Ozone with the GIS system, and analyze number of days based on the received and the scheduled target date. The output was used in the scheduled target dates tool here. The scheduled target date tool helps the team to investigate the issue and follow up with the referral and customer to try and sort out the issue without reaching or exceeding the target date. Other tools we have in the dashboard here, set of filters such as receive date, and you can do that. I'm not going to go through them one by one, but just to show you, and select referrals, CCM ID, select by subtypes, and the status, whether it's open or closed. We have a list of the CCM as for the filter. So when we filter those, the CCMs get updated. So within the last 2 days, we have those CCMs, which shows in here 31 CCMs out of 274 CCM that open. And the total CCM from January 2021 is about over 4,500 CCM. The list that shows here shows you the CCM ID, and when we click on any of the CCM, we'll drive on map to the location, click back, and everything goes back into original. So the tool is for internal stuff only. We had to secure the data and provide users with login credential to make sure the tool is shared within specific people. So that's basically and quickly, that's what we built for our transportation team. It's over to you, Tim.
Nice one. Thank you, FF. Okay, so that was the customer communication management dashboard. The next one we'd like to show you is our spatial display of capital works programs. This is a viewer that allows everyone to see everything that the council's doing. So this is a viewer designed for planners, project managers, and asset managers to help plan their 10-year capital program and identify located projects. So the information includes, you'll see here we've got an FME model that runs behind this, that pulls information from our asset management system, Acela, power plan, where all the financial information's kept. There's RAM for all the roading information, and of course we're pulling in a whole lot of GIS utility layers, and these are all outputted into the end result, which is the viewer. We can select by year, and we can select by the water type and everything. So this here shows the benefits. The benefits are when you get those clashes where someone decides to reseal a road 1 year, 2 years later, Waters comes along and they dig it back up to go and put in their pipes. This happens over and over again in many councils, and I'm sure you'll all agree. The communications between these departments aren't always the best, I guess. So this is a tool that's helped us actually highlight these areas. Here we can see you can actually sit there and filter just by the actual subtype. So if you just want to show stormwater and just want to show a certain type of stormwater, whether you just want to show the mains, manholes, sumps, if it was wastewater, you could just show certain subcategories there. The parks information, if you just want to show certain types. Here you'll see our CBD within Tauranga. This shows all the different works that are going to be happening within the CBD over the next 10 years. And that's just one little weeny part of Tauranga. So you can imagine, all those different things happening. You want to disrupt the public the least amount of times as possible and plan all your projects at the same time within certain areas. And that's the benefit of this tool. And you'll see a close up there of all the different years. And so here they're going to dig up the road 2021. 4 years later, they're doing a reseal in 2021. 4 years later, they're going to dig it up and do the pipes. So it's about trying to align all these different things together. This is the other aspect of it. So the end goal for us is to be able to have a tool where someone can basically type in an address and they can get everything that's going to be happening within their area within the next 10 years or so. So we've allowed project managers to start putting in their projects, so you can see, and that can be anything from a lighting project for a certain part of town to just upgrades of parks, or there's all sorts of things in there. And so someone would actually be able to actually see, what they're getting for their rates. And of course, there's the tool where you can actually sit there and click on any sort of item, of course, within the viewer, and that tells you who's the project manager, who they should contact if they do find there's a clash between their project and someone else's. And that's it, works end. So this is just a great tool that tries to, I guess, minimize the disturbance in the public for the ratepayer. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much to the team at Tauranga for that. Next, we're going to be hearing about what's been happening at Auckland Council. So first off, we're going to be hearing from Stephen, or Stevo Robinson, Geospatial Product Lead, who will be giving us an introduction to the Council's GeoHub and how they're enabling the business to carry out self-service GIS. This will be followed by Raven Chi, Senior Geospatial Specialist, giving us a quick look at their tree planting suitability app and how it benefits the arborist and ecological teams. So we'll hand it over to Auckland Council.
Geospatial Product Lead here at Auckland Council, and I'm going to be presenting on GeoHub. So at last year's user conference, Carl Alloway did a presentation on GeoHub, and it was very much at the early pilot phase of GeoHub. And since then, we've rolled this out to a lot of key parts of the business here at Auckland Council have really embraced GeoHub, and it's enabled them to be able to create these really awesome prototypes, which we'll touch on in a sec. The high-level purpose of GeoHub is to enable Auckland Council staff to be able to carry out mapping, analysis, and visualization across their department in a web-enabled setting. So at its core, it's a space for people to be able to collaborate, innovate, and I guess view and share data in almost like a sandbox-like environment, and be able to do that in a safe and secure way. And it's a really good space for these prototypes to be developed. So looking at the architecture of GeoMap, essentially it's portal where we create these departmental groups. We've got different user roles and some governance around that. And so we create these departmental groups where our users are able to share, collaborate, and view these different maps across their department. And then there's these different users within that who have different permissions. So we've got our viewers, our editors, our analysts, and our SMEs. And all of those have different permissions. And then we've got our GIS data store, which is where a lot of the layers and maps and things like that are stored. So going into what GeoHub offers, a lot of these different apps that come with portals. So your field apps, your dashboards, your story maps, etc. And we've also got a lot of the AC content, so a lot of our base maps. A lot of the services that you can see in GeoMaps can also be consumed through GeoHub, and it's a really good space to be able to create these proof of concepts. So we then get these proof of concepts as a geospatial team, and it's when they want to be able to share what they've done externally, whether that be beyond their department or to the general public. So we then get those proof of concepts and we add value to it as a geospatial team. So that such as testing, security, providing some enhancements, checking the functionality is there, and it all works good, and it's a good user experience. And yeah, so I'm going to pass over to Raven now, who's going to give an example of one of these proof of concepts that has been developed and then taken into that production environment. Cheers. Over to you, Raven.
Thanks, Steve-O. Through GeoHub, our customers from the arborist and ecological team were able to experiment and set up the tools they envisioned to enhance the operations on tree planting. From there, we were able to quickly migrate these internal portal items and collaboratively develop them into a supported solution of AppSuite on our external-facing portal environment that can be easily accessed in the field. The tree planting suitability web app that you see here is the most important core function of the AppSuite through the ArcGIS Collector app. With this, the team can easily view and update only the relevant tree planting information they need on any mobile device or desktop PC whenever and wherever needed. This greatly benefits the existing tree planting assessment process for the team through a number of critical aspects, such as the ability to swiftly navigate through the council database on removed trees and potential planting sites with minimal effort. They can easily create new potential planting sites, check and update the tree assets and planting information straight into our enterprise database and mark them for site scoping. This information is then passed onto the contractor through this very same app, so they know exactly which sites to visit and assess out in the field. They can make live updates to the data and even the location, if needed, straight out in the field with high accuracy. This also saves them to entering or updating the same information through another channel, which enables the team to monitor progress in real time through dashboard and other reporting tool. This is just one example of how GeoHub has enabled and benefited us as a wider team.
Awesome. Thank you to Steve-O and Raven for that. Now we are moving to our final section of this webinar. I'm going to pass it over to Ed Cook, who is going to lead a series of presentations about the work that is going on in the civil defence and emergency management space.
So up next is what's happening in civil defence and emergency management. My name's Ed Cook, and I'm very excited to bring to you a few presentations from around the country of how different local government groups and civil defence groups are working together to really deliver some powerful capability using the ArcGIS platform. So from the West Coast, we have Jo Patterson, who's a geologist, natural hazards and GIS and lifelines manager. She works in the emergency management group and works very closely with her local government GIS team to really create innovative solutions every time an event comes around, and then adding it to their overall capability. From Auckland, we have Adrian Rose and Alex Kelly, along with Celia Wilson. As you can see by the organisations that they represent, yet again we're seeing this collaboration between the BAU GIS capability alongside the emergency management group's interest in having really good location intelligence. And then finally from Canterbury in the south, we have Maurice Wills, who's a senior GIS specialist in the engineering and government sectors, working for Environment Canterbury. And all of these examples focus on events that have happened recently and how they've used GIS amongst them. So once again, very excited to be able to bring a whole lot of presentations from around the country that hopefully you can take some inspiration from and how you use GIS in your own regions. So for our first presentation, we thought we'd beam in someone in the midst of recovery right now for quite a large event that's happened recently. The West Coast Regional Council is one of our smaller regional populations. They represent over 32,000 people, but over 23,000 kilometres of mountainous, coastal and flood-prone terrain. Living here are smaller communities, but experiencing some of the largest and most frequent severe events seen in the country. So managing these events are Civil Defence along with their partner agencies, who use ArcGIS as one of their main intelligence tools for common operating pictures for understanding where it is and how bad it is during these events. Dashboarding key information needs of this group, since it's such a large group with lots around the table, can be a challenge, but we're lucky enough to have Joe Patterson join us briefly, beaming in from Greymouth to quickly run us through one of the tools, which happens to be one of the first times that I've personally seen over 1,000 evacuations being captured and visualised in real time back to the Emergency Coordination Centre. This during one of the largest flooding events to hit the West Coast, particularly Westport, in the last 100 years. So with that, over to you, Joe.
So here's the dashboard. So this has got what we need. All we needed was what number of people were encountered at the addresses, how many adults were there, the total of elderly, the total teenagers or children younger than 12, and the number of pets. Then we have groups heading to CDC, so that's their welfare centres. It was a roughly 50-50 split, which is critical information for response after evacuation. So we knew roughly 50% of evacuees were going to go to our welfare centres and 50% were not. This was used in the initial phase of evacuation, and then we, because of resourcing, were evacuating gradually over a 24-hour period through self-evacuation and evacuation orders continuing from that. This information was used even in recovery.
Thanks for that, Joe. Joe's a bit busy with recovery, so won't be able to make the Q&A, but we appreciate her time, and if you want to get in contact with Joe, please contact one of us and we're happy to forward on and make the introduction. So for our next presentation, we have Auckland Emergency Management and Auckland Council Geospatial team joining us to talk about their new geospatial platform called GRIP. So with that, I'd like to pass over to the team there, Celia, Adrian and Alex, to run us through this new set of tools based on ArcGIS.
How geospatial solutions are changing the way we respond to emergency events. In the last 3 weeks, the Auckland Council Geospatial team have worked with Auckland Emergency Management to deliver spatial solutions for the COVID Delta resurgence and the West Auckland storm and flooding event. Earlier this year, Auckland Emergency Management, in conjunction with Auckland Council and Eagle Technology, developed and published the Geospatial Response Intelligence Platform, or GRIP tools, and in every response we are seeing the benefit and the opportunities of spatial information and apps. For the COVID resurgence, the Geospatial team quickly stood up 2 custom Survey 123 welfare needs assessment forms that were utilised by both the Welfare Function Desk and the Auckland Council Customer Service representatives. The information that was collected from both teams is collated into the same database, allowing all the information to be in one place. The exportable spreadsheet function means the data can be filtered to pull out statistics and metrics. During the COVID-19 response, Auckland was hit with the storm and flooding event. Rapid damage assessments were conducted and building control and response teams were deployed to the field. A new field app, Quick Capture, was utilised successfully for the first time in response by the response teams, and AEM staff were able to create incident data and overlay this information to create better situational awareness. The Quick Capture Summary dashboard inside GRIP provides summary statistics including latest records, numbers of records by impact, and the ability to filter by date. The ability to draw in incident data allows us to use that data to give us other information. Selecting an incident on the left zooms to the location and is used to calculate the number of affected households using intersecting address points. Thank you for listening to this quick presentation. If you have questions or comments, please email us.
Yeah, fantastic work. One of our largest populations contrasting one of our smallest populations using that same set of tools. One of the more complex events that we've seen recently was the Canterbury Severe Weather Event. with 9 TLAs within the Canterbury region. It's certainly a challenge whenever something widespread occurs, particularly around how to coordinate all those different sets of data into a single common operating picture. So to run us through a timeline of events as they unfolded from the perspective of the GIS team, I'd like to hand over to Morris.
Kia ora everyone, Morris here from Environment Canterbury Regional Council on behalf of Civil Defence Canterbury and our GIS team. I'm here today to talk to you about the Canterbury Severe Weather event of May 30th, 2021. Let's have a quick look at the events and alerts happening as the emergency event built up.
Urgent evacuations are continuing across Waitaha, Canterbury, as severe flooding has put the entire region in a state of emergency. In the latest developments, Met Service has extended its RIA code red severe weather warning until 7 p.m. tonight. Multiple roads have been closed due to slips and flooding, bridges have been washed away, and the rising and fast-moving floodwaters have breached stop banks in a number of locations.
This was quite a large event. 6 of the 9 local authorities that were affected. We were ready to use incident management views on the Civil Defence Canterbury ArcGIS online organisation tenant, and we were keen on multi-agency visibility for shared operational view. We use ArcGIS online groups for information sharing. So let me take you through a 5-day account from the GIS team. Day 1. Red weather warning was issued after 300 millimetres of rain has fallen on the Canterbury Plains. Main highways south and west of Christchurch are likely to close or closed already. The GIS team have been contacted to have a presence at the Regional Emergency Operations Centre precinct in Christchurch, and eventually the regional state of emergency was declared. Day 2. Evacuations were already underway at Fernside, Pines Beach, Kairaki and Waimakariri district, and Springfield and the Selwyn district. And prepare to evacuate notices were issued at other locations. We were keen to administer ArcGIS online access to other agency staff, obviously, and photos are starting to come in and being uploaded from ground crews and helicopter flights. Some of that early oblique photographic data. You can see here some photos of the ground crews. And this application is great because you can just look through the photos, and you can obviously filter by date. We group the photos day by day, so you can look at the same location over multiple days. Like that. And let's take a closer look here at the specific location on the Ashburton River North Branch. And just for the comm staff or public information, anytime you can see a helicopter do a track like this where they do a loop, there's obviously a location of interest. So day 3 was all about consolidating the data set feeds of road closures from up to 6 districts plus NZTA across the region. We wanted that regional view, and we had to use FME to automate some of these processes. And I want to give special mention here to Nathan McKinley, who was hard at work here. You can see his workbench here in the photo and the resulting map application of the road closures up on the big screen. On to day 4. Day 4, the weather starts to clear and sufficiently enough for aerial photo capture to begin. The rain obviously stops, and standing and moving water, but yeah, standing and moving water is still very much evident. And though the photo wasn't at the height of the flood, we can still use it to map the flood extents for recovery. Day 5. So the vendor were able to process all night, and the aerial photos were delivered, and we got busy caching them, serving them up as raster tiles by imagery server, and the flood teams begins drawing up an indicative flood affected area. As well as that, our intelligence manager issues comms to inform all participants that the aerial imagery is now available. So damage assessment process begins with Survey 123, collected information from roading teams, and we can see here one district, Ashburton districts, results, 978 total damage assessments, and the main occurrence of potholes, scours, road failures and washouts, as well as roading damage, building damage assessments. Data starts coming in. I'm not familiar with the MV form. There is a grouping there for heavy damage, moderate damage, or light or no damage. So I just want to stress that it's important to collect the detailed rapid assessment outcome coding, WY1, Y2, but also make sure that we do capture the red traffic light data so we can share that information and get it up on a dashboard as quick as possible for decision makers. Survey 123 needs assessments start coming in as well, and we quickly, through the welfare team, decided to get a combined regional view, because it was important that each agency realise where they were working, which properties have been contacted, and it was important to get a one-pager sheet out to all these agencies for communication for these people of who to contact and which agencies are available. So key takeaways would be, rapid stand-up of pre-configured ArcGIS online applications give you a really good head start, and a rapid focus on key data sets in a flooding event, which is like road closures, quickly stand up as a mashup, but ideally, there's some common schemas to be able to do it quicker. And having dashboards ready for decision makers at the regional and national level. And it's very important to have a multi-agency sharing of key geospatial data sets using ArcGIS online groups where available, because it's so easy. And talking about ease, here's a bit of a sneak preview of some of the groupings that we had and were refined after this event from the key learnings. So we've got the lifeline partners, we've got the weather event itself, so it's important to group each event to be ready for obviously the next event, and then you'll have the needs assessments, which can be grouped and be more secure than the other data sets, and also it's key to share to also non-governmental organisations as well as the government partner response agencies. So who did we share to at the end? And I want to thank Ed here, Ed Cook especially, to help us to get the right user details. So our roadmap for our geospatial project capability for Emergency Management Canterbury is to get agreement on common schemas across the region. The key data sets we're looking at road closures, evacuation areas, roadblocks and checkpoints, and getting that digital field survey data collection, having those already and common across the region, and alignment of partner agencies, what the capabilities are, the capacity, and how they can support and roles and responsibilities. And ahead of time, obviously, having that public information agreed. I want to mention some retrospective capability that we were able to build from this event. So through Environment Canterbury, we've now got a subscription to Planet satellite imagery, which is updated daily on our rivers. So you can see here that our area of interest along the Canterbury's main rivers. And retrospectively, had we had this capability, we could have had imagery on day 2, I believe here, June the 1st. You can see here, it's not cloudless imagery, it's not perfect, but it's still good imagery for intelligence. So I want to mention thanks to a few people, and I'll just list them off. They'll know who they are if they're listening. Stephen, Michael, Cheryl, Helen, Zach, Hannah, Gordon, Tash, Steve, Nathan, Ryan, Ian, Mariana, Matt, Susan, Louise, and obviously Ed Cook again. Thanks very much, everyone.
So there you go. Thank you to our 3 presentations in this emergency management subset of this local government stream. Fantastic to have stories about how these tools are assisting our largest, our smallest, and one of our most diverse and spread out populations in the country. So thank you very much for all the work that you guys do. So with that, I'm going to hand back over to Lauren.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Ed. And that there is the end of our presentations today for you. And I do apologise, we have gone a bit over 12:30. So I hope you can forgive us. Obviously, there's a lot of great stories that need to be told. So again, thank you to all the presenters. We did have a large number that have come forward and put together some great content, and it takes a lot of work. So thank you to those people for putting that forward. So now we're just moving on to the Q&A, and as I said, we're a bit over time, so you are welcome to leave the webinar now if you'd like. If you'd like to stay on though, we'll go through some of the questions that you have asked throughout the session today. So what I'd like to do is ask our panelists, the people that you can see on the screen right now, to just turn on their cameras and we can just go through some of the questions that were asked. So we'll see if everyone wants to jump on. Awesome. Hi team. Cool. So going through some of the questions that were asked, I just want to put this out there just before if anybody wants to jump off. This recording of today will be available on YouTube, on the Eagle Technology YouTube. So all the presentations that you have seen will be available in the coming weeks as part of the New Zealand Esri User Conference content that we're pushing out. So if you missed something, don't worry about it too much. You can just re-watch it. So cool. Awesome. We've got a couple of questions here that have come in. The first one that I want to point out is probably for you, Julian. This was around your presentation. So the question is there a way to use the ArcGIS vector tile style editor to edit a local New Zealand base map? I can only edit the world base map, but not the New Zealand base maps. Thank you in advance. Do you want to jump on and answer that?
Yeah, definitely can. Hopefully you can hear me right. Yeah, good question. And you definitely can. The easiest way to do so would be to go to the Map Viewer Classic. Unfortunately, it's not in the new Map Viewer functionality just yet. And ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise, add your chosen base map to your web map, and then you'll have the option to change the symbology. And that'll prompt you to save a copy of the base map style and open the vector tile style editor. But we can send through a wee blog post on how to do that if you need some more assistance.
Awesome, cool. Thank you, Julian. I have one here that says, obviously, great presentation, QLDC. They did a really great job, didn't they? There is a question about licensing. So what are the ArcGIS Online licensing requirements for a non-Esri using council to become a hub standard and / or premium user? Maybe Greg, do you want to answer that one?
Sure, no problem. So the minimum requirement is you need one ArcGIS Online creator license that will give you Hub Basic. And then from there you can get a Hub Premium license. And then there's a couple of license options within Hub Premium, either ad hoc or unlimited. Ad hoc allows you to buy a certain number of community users. These are like creator named users you'll be familiar with, and you can provide those out to community individuals and groups. So if you are interested in exploring those options further, then I'd definitely suggest giving one of the account managers a call or contact us here at sales at Eagle Tech. Back over to you, Lauren.
Cheers, Greg. Thank you for that. I have a question that's probably for Omid. It's around ArcGIS Urban. So we have a question on how easy is it to load in a building model into ArcGIS Urban?
Sorry, can you hear me very well?
Yep, no, we can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, cool. No, that's a very good question, actually. So ArcGIS Urban has a good level of integration with other Esri ArcGIS products, especially City Engine. So I'm assuming that most of urban designers design their building models into ArcGIS City Engine, so they can kind of create those models in ArcGIS City Engine, and then that model could be published as a scene viewer, for example, in ArcGIS Online, and then we can import that scene viewer as an either design context or a scenario for a project into ArcGIS Urban.
Yeah, and I suppose same goes for if you're building models in, say, Revit or other sort of CAD-driven software. You can publish those, import those into Pro, and then from there, as Omid said, publish them into Online, and you can use them in the Scene Viewer or Urban or other 3D-enabled products. Thanks, Omid.
Cool, thank you, team. One here for Ed, and this was on one of the last presentations. What was the name of the app that was used for collating the rapid damage photo assessment? And is that available as an out-of-the-box web app builder template or experience, like an experience builder?
Yeah, awesome question. Eagle-eyed viewer there. So the app used for that is a new set of apps called Instant Apps. They were shown in the plenary a few days ago, but really it's in between where Web App Builder was and where Experience Builder is. So it was the Instant Apps, and it was using the attachment viewer template embedded within a map series story map. Back to you, Lauren.
That's sneaky. No, that's really cool to know. Another one here for you, Ed. It's probably more related to also some of the content that I know you talked about in plenary. So how many organizations can I collaborate with using ArcGIS Online groups or partnered collaboration? So that probably relates to some of the content that was talked about by Maurice at the end there as well.
Yeah, so with groups, you can set up unlimited amounts of groups. There's no cap on it. In fact, I challenge you to see how many groups you can set up. However, with partner collaboration, it is more of a formal handshake with an administrator setting. So at the moment, the current limit for partner collaboration is 10 from one organisation to 10 other instances of ArcGIS Online. And the same goes with distributed collaboration. There's a limit on that too. That's one ArcGIS Online to one ArcGIS Enterprise. So hopefully that helps.
Cool, no, that's great. A couple of questions that are probably more local maps related, so I'll take these ones here. How do I put my organisation forward to be part of the beta program, or if we want to have a regional workshop? So probably for either of those two options, the best process is to either just fire me an email, you can see my email on screen, or you can just contact localmaps@eagle.co.nz and just state what you would like to be involved in. That would be great. There was another local maps one here. Okay, I am keen to use the local maps reporting for our council's LIMS. Do you have any info or resources on how to do that? Yeah, so Josh, who's in our product team, he really recently put together a bit of a blog post and some how-to videos, so a step-through process on how to build specifically LIM reports. So this was working with Napier City Council. It's a collaboration with them. So if you'd like some more fine-grained detail on how to build those reports, I would suggest checking that out, and we can make that resource available in some resources after this webinar as well, if that's helpful. One other question here, sorry, going back to Omid again, we've got another one about urban. Yep. Which outcome of LiDAR could be used for making a 3D base map?
Yep, thank you. I think it's actually more relevant to the base map, but yeah, so there are different deliverables of LiDAR, DSM, DTM, and point cloud data. So in the 3D base maps solution package, we specifically use point cloud data for creating 3D base map. Back to you, Lauren.
Thank you. No, that is all good. And we've got another one here as well, just while I have you. Sorry, you're a very popular guy.
Yep.
How could proposed plans be evaluated in ArcGIS Urban to help achieve a planning target?
Yeah, so I guess, so we can quantify planning targets as capacity metrics as a new capability in ArcGIS Urban. So for example, like a number of houses or number of population that we're gonna accommodate in our new plan. And then we can define them as a new capacity metrics. And then in each scenario, we have values for each capacity metrics calculated. And then based on the values for these capacity metrics, we can compare scenarios to see which scenario is closer to achieve our planning targets.
Cool, awesome. Thank you very much for that. And I think that is most of the questions that were fired through. What we will do as well is that we will collate some of these and send them out. So if you have asked something that's specific to one of our presenters, as we weren't able to bring everyone on board with the number of presenters that we had, so we'll be able to collate those and send those out to you specifically. But there were a lot of questions about whether or not this is going to be available after this, and yep, absolutely. So keep an eye out, and we'll be sending out some information on where to find this link to watch at a later time. Now, thank you everybody for jumping on. Thank you to all our panelists for jumping on as well at the end, and mostly thank you to our presenters. We really appreciate you putting together the content, and hopefully everyone can take away something new and you know, maybe implement something new in your organizations. So thank you very much. Just a little bit of information about what's coming up. So you can see that we have the rest of the webinar series that will be available. We have asset management and utilities, that's later this week. And then we have the other following webinars available next week. So make sure you can follow the link that's on screen, or just nip onto the Eagle website and you can register for those as well. So hopefully you can, and hopefully you enjoyed today. Thank you very much, everybody, and hopefully we will see you face to face next year for the New Zealand Esri User Conference. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.